I'm going to show you how you can use Shopify's checkout UI extensions and Gadget to build a full stack pre-purchase product offer application in under 25 minutes. I'm going to get started building my custom pre-purchase offer application for my Shopify checkout. I've gone to gadget.new, or I've gone to a Gadget homepage and signed in, and I'm brought to this app creation screen. I'm going to select the Shopify app type and click next and enter a domain for my app. I'll just call this pre-purchase v1 tutorial, and I'm using v1 because we're on Gadget framework version 1 now. And when I create this app, I get my hosted and scaled Postgres database, my serverless node backend, and my React frontend powered by Vite. Everything is set up and ready to go. The first thing I'm going to do is connect to Shopify. Now, because I want app extensions, I want a checkout UI extension for that pre-purchase offer, I need to connect through the partner's dashboard. So I can go ahead, go to my partner's dashboard. I'm on the apps page already, and I'll just create a new app and create an app manually. And I'll give this the same name, pre-purchase v1 tutorial. Perfect. And now I can copy my client ID and secret back to my Gadget app. There's my secret, and I'll press continue. Now on this page, I select what Shopify API scopes and data models I want to include in my app. I want to be able to read my existing products to my Gadget database, and then I'll allow merchants to select one of the products in my embedded admin app to be offered in the checkout. So I'm going to go ahead and click the read product scope so I can get my product data into my Gadget database, and I'll select the product data model. Now I get a setup summary off to the right here. This is covering a couple things that you're getting with the Gadget connection out of the box. The first is webhook subscriptions to your Shopify webhooks. So I can see access to webhook triggers. That's going to include my product webhooks. So I am automatically going to be subscribed to my product webhooks in Shopify, which means that anytime a merchant changes a product in their store admin, the webhook will fire, Gadget will stay up to date. I can also see that I am going to have the read products access scope, which is good. And I see the data models we're going to be syncing into my Gadget database. And that includes my Shopify product model, as well as the shop and GDPR request models, which are added every time you connect to Shopify through the partner's dashboard. Now, the other thing you're getting through this connection is a historical data sync. So not only will you be able to react to any product webhooks, but you'll be able to sync your existing products into your database as well. And that's what is being highlighted by this models syncing data section. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and press confirm. Now I need to go ahead and copy my app URL and redirection URL back to my partner's app. So I'll do that. Go back to my partner, go to configuration, paste my app URL, and I'll do the same for my redirection URL. And I'm good. I'll press save and release. Now I'm ready to install my app on my development store. So I can go back to my overview in my partner dashboard for my app, select a store, and I will do my classic test with sample data store. So I haven't written a line of code yet, no auth code. Gadget is going to handle all of that for me. I can go ahead and press install right away. Gadget's also going to handle Shopify Polaris installation. That's their component library. It'll manage AppBridge setup for me, so I don't need to touch AppBridge manually. And it'll handle Shopify's session tokens. So all of that handled for me by Gadget. This is actually my embedded React app. I can see that this page is powered by route/index.jsx. And if I go back to my Gadget app, I can see I'm successfully connected to Shopify. So that's fantastic. I am going to go ahead and actually run my historical data sync now. So I'm going to go in this connected app section to my installs. I can see here's my shop. My API scopes have been granted access. My webhooks are registered. I will press the sync button. This is going to bring all of my products from this development store test with sample data into my Gadget database. Looks like it's completed. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And you'll see in my file explorer off to the left here, under API models, API is my backend, web is my front end, I have my Shopify product data model, as well as my shop GDPR request session, and sync. So if I go ahead and open product, click on schema, these are all of the fields on my model. Fields are like columns on my database table. And if I check out the data page, I see that my data has indeed been synced. So there's not a ton of product data. This is just a test store. But no matter how much data you do have, Gadget will manage Shopify's rate limit and bring data into your Gadget database as fast as possible. So you don't need to write that data sync yourself. That's great. That is the connecting to Shopify step. Before I get into custom action code, I actually am going to go on a bit of a detour. This isn't really required for this tutorial. It's mostly just to show you how to do it. It's also included in the written instructions. I'm going to go to my Shopify shop model, click on my schema. I once again see all of my fields, and I'm going to go ahead and add a custom field. And I'm just going to go call this pre-purchase product. So I can actually store data from my Shopify metafields in line with the rest of my shop data. That's pretty neat. I just need to enter a namespace. I'll just call this Gadget tutorial. I'm going to register my namespace, and I'll enter a key for my metafield. So I'll call this pre-purchase product. And this is going to be a product reference. And I'll leave it as a string type for now. So we're going to store that product ID to a meta field so that it can be easily ingested into my checkout extension. I'm also going to sync that data here in my Gadget database. When I said I didn't need it before, I think that was a bit of a lie. I actually do need this, and this is going to power my front end experience. So I'll be able to tell what meta field has been selected already so that when the merchant comes back to my app, I'll be able to pre-populate the selected option. So that was a bit of a lie. That's okay. We're going to keep on trucking. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a custom action to my Shopify shop model. You'll see when I went ahead and set up my Shopify connection, or if I go ahead and create a custom model, Gadget is going to automatically generate a CRUD API for your data models. I can also go ahead and modify this API by adding custom actions. So I'll just click plus on the actions folder, and I'll call my action save pre-purchase product, and I want to add .js. And this will give me a new action file. So the anatomy of a default action, we have run and on success functions. Run is good for database level quick operations. And then I also have my on success function. This is good for side effects, longer running code. Check out our documentation for more information on the difference between the two. Off to the side, I have triggers. So I can see, like I mentioned, this is a custom action. So it is custom API. So I can see if I want to call this from my API client, it's api.shopifyshop.save pre-purchase product. I'm going to go ahead and paste in some code that actually modifies this API. And we can actually take a look at how this updates when I paste in code. So you'll notice I dumped in some stuff. There's a lot less parameters here in my little example API endpoint trigger box, which is very cool. And I'll explain what happened. By default, when I create a new action in Gadget, it is a action type update. And this means that all of the fields on your model, in my case, Shopify shop, are available as parameters. I've set this to a custom action now, which means the only required parameter is the ID. And that's this 123 you're seeing there. So that's going to be the ID of my shop. I've then defined a custom parameter down here, export const params, as the product ID. And this will be the product ID of the product that I offer in the checkout, which is groovy. I've added a bunch of code to my run function now. I still have apply params and prevent cross-shop data access. That's particularly useful for public apps. It means multi-tenancy is enforced. And all I'm doing here is I am grabbing my product ID from my passed in parameters. It's going to be the product that's offered in the checkout. And I've got this connections object here from my high context parameter. I'm going connections.shopify.current.graphql. And this is going to have my current shop context. And we know that because when we make a request using our Gadget API client in the front end, which we'll get to in a bit, we're going to include the session token automatically so we know what store is making that request, which is why we can use current. And then I can just go .graphql, and this is just a set metafield GraphQL mutation straight from Shopify's docs. And we are defining our metafield. See, it's pre-purchase product, same key and namespace as we defined on the custom field on the Shopify shop model. Passing in the shop as the owner. Record is my current shop, so it's just going to be the shop ID. It's a product reference metafield, and the value is just the product ID. And finally, I'm just using Gadget's built-in logger. This is also exposed via this high context parameter to log the response. So that is my custom action. Now I need to go ahead and do one more thing on this page before I build my front end, and that's access control. By default, when I create a custom model or add a custom action to an existing model, we do not allow merchants, Shopify merchants, to be able to call these actions. You actually need to enable it, and that's just for some built-in security. I'm going to go ahead and under my triggers box, I have this access control. I'm just going to toggle Shopify app users. And that's the role that is assigned to merchants when they interact with your app in the embedded admin. So now I'm good. Now I can go ahead and call this action from my front end without issue. And so now we can get to the front end. That's our back end build. I have my web folder. I can open that up. You see, we already set up an API client, and this is going to be specific to your Gadget app. Pre-purchase V1 tutorial here. And all I need to do is import API into whatever code file I want, and I can call my Gadget API. If I go into routes, well, let's take a look at components first. Components has our router definition. It's in this app.jsx file. And this is kind of handling, it's route definitions right now. There's an unauthenticated app view. So if I try and open up my app outside of the Shopify admin, I'll just go ahead and click preview. I'll get denied, get out of here, only view it in the admin. So that's nice. The interesting stuff is in routes. I have an about and index.jsx, which are just the default routes we provide. I'm going to paste over my index.jsx. So this will be my new default page. And let's go ahead and just give this a refresh. Gadget front ends do have hot module reloading built in. However, there is a timeout of 2 or 3 minutes. So you may need to refresh if you go idle for a bit. But this is my app. I can go ahead and select one of my products, press save, and this will actually go ahead. It'll fire that custom action, save it to a metafield or save that product ID to a metafield. And now if I go ahead and check my Shopify shop data, and I do need to go ahead and find that metafield column. Here we go. Pre-purchase product. I see that my product ID was indeed saved. So that is fantastic. My front end is working. I'll quickly walk through the front end code here. So I actually have a custom pre-purchase form. I'll get to that. We are importing that API client. I'm using some React hooks. We also have a Gadget Inc. React package that is providing some useful hooks that I'm using to interact with my API. So I'll scroll down past here. The default function being exported at this route. All I'm doing, I'm using a useFind menu hook to actually read my existing products. So you can see it's my api.shopify product. I get data, fetching, and error. Data is the returned products. Fetching is a Boolean I can use to show a loading spinner. Error is going to be any errors. We can display those to users. I'm also using a useFind first hook to read my current shop ID. So I'm passing in api.shopify shop, as well as an additional selection criterion. I'm just setting ID to true. So I'll only read the ID. I don't need the rest of my shop fields. Once again, data, fetching, and error, and I'm aliasing all those. I have a little use effect hook here. So when I do actually have products or my products change, if they do indeed exist, I'm just mapping these to an options object, setting them in some React state. And that's what I'm actually feeding in. If I go ahead and highlight product options here, I'm just feeding that into my pre-purchase form component to be offered in that dropdown. And the rest of this is just plain old Shopify Polaris, which is pretty groovy. So I'm just going to go back up to my pre-purchase form now. This is the component I had in that lower block. One thing I do want to point out here is use action forms. So you'll notice in my form, I don't have any React use state hooks. Use action form is handling my entire form state for me. Now, in this case, my form state is a single input. Use action form is really powerful when you get to large forms or nested data models. If you want an example of that, check out our product quiz template or tutorial. And use action form, it comes with a submit that is being called. It's a function. that fires this API. So that's going to be api.shopifyshop.save pre-purchase product. That's my custom action. So whenever I go ahead and hit my button, submit my form, it fires my custom action, and it is passing in the ID, which is going to be the ID of the shop, and the product ID. And I'm doing some little wizardry down here to just watch for changes on the pre-purchase product. That's the custom field on my model. And I'm just setting that value to product ID so that whenever I change it in the input, I'm setting that up as a product ID and not as the pre-purchase product field. The other thing to point out is that because Polaris is a controlled component library, I'm using this controller component. I am importing this from my Gadget Inc. React library. I'm passing in a name. I got my model and then .field. And this is what handles all of my form state for me. So I just pass in this control. This is coming right from my use action form hook. And then in my render, I get my field. I'm just pulling out the ref. Polaris doesn't like refs. Spreading the field props, and this is taking care of things like my on-change, my value, my name, all of the default fields you need for your form, it'll be taken care of, which is great. And then I am passing in my products as options. So that's my entire front end. Now we can get to the good stuff. So I can see that this works. Now I want to build my extension. So let's go ahead. I am going to open up my Gadget command palette. It's just Command P, and I can go ahead and run yarn add Shopify app and Shopify CLI. So normally what you do, or what you could do with this, or what you did before, if you've built an extension before with Gadget, is you would go ahead and create a new Shopify CLI app. It would include these dependencies, and you would build your extension separately from Gadget. I'm actually going to build my extension in my Gadget app. And the main benefit to this is that now that Gadget has source control support, I can manage my entire app and my Shopify extensions in one nice little neat package, one code base. So that is great. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just installing my Shopify app and Shopify CLI NPM packages so I can go ahead and generate my extensions here in my Gadget project. I will have to make some edits to my package.json file. I'm just going to leave this for now. So the first thing I'll need to do is add workspaces and trusted dependencies. I'm just going to paste these at the bottom here. Fantastic. Once again, these are in the written tutorials if you want to copy paste directly. I'm also going to add the default scripts included with Shopify apps. I am just going to expand this, save those, and I am good to go. Now what I need to do in order to actually generate my extension is pull down my code to my local machine. And I'm going to use GGT to do that. So I have this little cloud icon. I'm just going to copy this command. GGT is Gadget's CLI tool. And what it does is it pulls your Gadget project down to your local machine. And then while it's running, while this GGT dev command is running in the background, you see it will just stay running. Any changes I make locally or in my Gadget editor will be pushed to the other location. So it'll keep everything in sync. It means I can develop my Gadget apps locally. So I'm just going to open up another tab here. Let's make this a bit bigger. And so if I change directory into my app, pre-purchase, V1, tutorial, I can go ahead and I am actually going to do a bit more setup first. I'm just going to open my editor. Copy this over here. So we got VS Code. So this is my Gadget app. You can see I've got a settings.gadget.ts. This just manages things like my Gadget framework version, my connection settings. I have my API and web folders. You see I do have a schema files now for my model, so I can use source control to manage my whole Gadget app. What I want to go ahead and add in order to support extensions is at the root level a .ignore. Helps if I spell it correctly. Let's go ahead and rename this. Ignore, beautiful. And then I'm actually just going to go ahead and paste this extensions */dist. And this .ignore file just means that any folders defined in here will not be synced as part of that GGT dev command. The syntax for this .ignore is the exact same as git ignore. So that's great. So now when I actually build my extensions, I won't get all of the distribution files synced up to my Gadget app, which is okay because Shopify is actually going to host my extension. So I'll go ahead, go back to my editor, and I'm going to generate my extension. I'm just going to straight up copy this command And so this is using yarn generate extension. I'm selecting the checkout UI template and calling it pre-purchase ext. I want to select the same partners organization and app. So I do not want to create a new app. I want to connect to an existing app. And I want to select the app I use to connect Gadget to my Shopify store. And I'll select JavaScript React as the language. And you can see I now have an extensions folder here in my local Gadget project. And if I flip back to my Gadget editor in the web, I have my extensions folder here. So that's great. So now I can either choose to develop locally or here in the Gadget editor. I'll stick to local for now. Really, all I need to do is modify my extension now. So I can go ahead and open my extensions file. I have this toml, and this is my extension configuration file. I'm going to paste something over it, but the only real change is that I am passing in my metafield as input to my extension. The rest is all just standard boilerplate included when I generate my extension. No other changes. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy code into my checkout JSX file. I'll actually go ahead and start my extension first, just so we can see what this looks like. So if I go ahead and run yarn dev, this will go ahead and start my Shopify app. I want to select the same development store I used to set up my Gadget connection. So that was test with sample data. And if I open up this, copy my pre-purchase extension URL and paste it in here, I see this is going to be my default extension, which is just a banner. So it's this pre-purchase extension here. So let's go ahead and update this now. I'll just copy a bit more code, go back to my local file, and you see this is just a banner right now. So if I paste over this, flip back, I see I am now being offered my product that I select in my admin app. So let's mix this up. Let's go Oxygen, press save. So that was saved. It's going to save to that Shopify metafield. And if I go ahead and refresh this page, I see that Oxygen is now being offered. That's fantastic. So I know my extension is working. If I click add, it's added to my cart. So let's go ahead and check out our extension go quickly. I will be perfectly honest, a lot of this code is taken directly from Shopify's own pre-purchase tutorial, so there's not a lot of differences. I'm using the Shopify UI extensions React checkout package, and I am just pulling all of their checkout UI components that I need, as well as some React hooks. These do not use default Polaris components. They're their own set of components, so just something to be aware of. Quickly walking through here, I'm using apply cart line changes to go ahead and actually make the change when I add that item to the cart. This is my use app metafields, and I'm getting my pre-purchase product. So this is how I'm actually getting my metafield into my app. I've got a bunch of React state that I'm setting up here. Inside a use effect, when I actually get my metafield in as input, if it exists, I'm actually just querying the storefront. So I can query the storefront. This query is coming right from my use API hook that Shopify provides for me. And I'm just grabbing the very first variant and the very first image for this product. Normally, if you're building this for a production system, you probably want to be able to choose the image, choose the variant you're offering or showing to shoppers in the checkout. Right now, I'm just grabbing the first ones. And I'm passing in my metafield value as input. So what this is going to do is going to get me my product variant, which has the price and an image I can show. I'm also using use cart lines to grab the cart lines. There is a little loading block here. I'm using the cart lines to check to see if the product being offered is already in the cart. If it's not, I'm returning null. Same with if things are done loading, I'm returning null or there's no product selected. When I return null on an extension, it just means don't draw the extension. So that's how I can just escape early, not actually draw anything. Finally, I've got my product. I'm just grabbing my images, title, and variants. I am getting my image URL. I'm also providing a default here. And then I'm just using my checkout components. I've got my image. I've got my product title. I've got my price. And then I have my add button here. And the interesting part about the add button is on press, I am using that apply cart lines change function that came from the hook. I am adding a cart line. I'm just adding my variant. I'm setting it to a quantity of 1. And that is that. If I do have an error, I am going to go ahead and show that error as well as log it. So that is the end-to-end app build. We've already gone through the demo and we've seen that it does indeed work. I can also go ahead and deploy my extension. Let's walk through this really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and stop. Shopify does host all of your extensions, so I can just go yarn deploy. This will actually push my extension code to Shopify. In this case, include Shopify app toml configuration on deploy. It doesn't really matter what you pick. Gadget is going to manage your Shopify connection anyways and how that app is defined in terms of scopes. So it doesn't really matter if you push or don't push. I'm just going to select yes. And I will release my extension as a new version. And now if I go ahead into my store, let's go to settings, checkout, customize. And this is my checkout editor. I can go to add app block and I see this is my app block. I can click on it. It is added to my page. I'm just going to go back here. I can actually hover and I can drag this around if I want. If I want to move it in different places, now it's down at the bottom here. I can move it to my order summary. Maybe I want it right up here. That looks good to me. If I'm happy with this location, I can press save. And now when I actually go visit my store, if I just go to my store here and run through a quick checkout, oh, there's already some things in my cart. I'm going to remove the Oxygen snowboard and check out. And I can see, there we go. My dev command isn't running, so this is actually my deployed extension in my checkout, and I can go ahead and add it to my cart. That was our end-to-end app tutorial. If you have any questions, you can check out our written tutorial or ask us questions in our developer Discord. We're always hanging around and happy to help. Until next time, I hope you keep building more and coding less with Gadget.